Belichick's lost a step to me.
I'm not going to do this.
This is Anik Squared.
All right, stop, collaborate, and listen. In the words of Vanilla Ice, I just felt it was appropriate given how ice cold Jon Anik was in week 4. Welcome to week 5 of Anik Squared. My name is Jason Anik, joined by my identical twin brother, Jon Anik. Some call him the lead play-by-play voice of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I'm glad that you're not immediately to my right or left this week. But yeah, I just felt like in the words of Vanilla Ice, just gave a little back to the book this week, didn't you, Jon?
I wanted to get out of your house. Everybody was complimenting your house. I was getting sick of that. I was getting sick of getting yelled at for a potential tea spillage early on in the program. So we're back in the friendly confines of the Anik and Florian podcast studio, presented by DraftKings, of course. Shout out to our friends at Toyo Tires. But I thought this was going to be a celebration Tuesday here on Anik Squared, as for the first time this year, we actually were over 500 in the all-important Westgate Super Contest. But if you want to rake me over the coals for our week 4 head-to-head, I am here to take all of those bullets. I am bullishly confident about our chances to end the year on top. Our goal is to be above 500 at the very least, picking games against you and against the spread. But given historically, your track record, we feel pretty good.
So anyone who missed the first 4 episodes of Anik Squared, shame on you, but we appreciate you being with us for episode 5. Each week on Anik Squared, we pick 5 games against the spread and against each other. Our ultimate goal being to nail down our 5 selections for the Westgate Las Vegas Super Contest. So,
microphone sounds like shit. That microphone sounds like shit. We got to get him a sure microphone code.
We'll turn up a little bit.
That's okay. We're just talking trash.
I'll tighten the screws a little bit. All right. Well, there's going to be plenty of trash to talk. So we'll get back to our week 4 selection. Our selections from week 4. You're so cold. Maybe you should read the promo for this segment. Just play it. We'll get right to it. Let's get to Tire and Ice, presented by Toyo Tires. Guys, the road ahead for this football season is uncertain, and there's definitely no map available for players, fans, or coaches. But in order to arrive at the big games, you need to get there safely. The next time you're in the market for tires, there is no better option route than a quick slant to Toyo Tires. Whether it's a set of open country tires for the mountains of Denver or 4 new Celsius Sports for a city like LA, you can ride with confidence and no regrets with their 500-mile or 45-day trial. Open roads await this fall. Hit up toyotires.com to find a dealer near you. Toyo Tires, open roads await. So, the Super Contest is the most important thing. As you said, over 500. So we were 3-2 in the Super Contest last week, 9-11 overall. At 6-9 going into the week, we obviously moved in the right direction. Kind of an interesting week. The 2 losses, as we like to sort of stop. We start with the losses. The 2 losses: Saints -3 versus the Buccaneers, Bengals -2.5 at the Titans. You want to start with one of those games? Any of those you want to touch on for our Super Contest dumps? The Saints -3 was the last one in. Frankly, Derek Carr, I thought he wasn't playing. They really didn't open it up. They would have, I think, a little more with Jameis Winston. I've been down on the Saints offense. Maybe there would have been some better options, but it was the last game in. Too bad there. Anyway, Bengals -2.5 at Titans. Anything for you on that?
Yeah, I had some fear fading Mike Vrabel, especially in Nashville. And I guess I was just sort of banking on the fact that the Cincinnati Bengals weren't just going to throw away the win they had accrued the previous week. And I think this is going to be something we touch on thematically later in the show when it comes to week 5. But as we sit here on a Tuesday, is Joe Burrow playing? Is T. Higgins playing? What is going on with the Cincinnati Bengals? And there was so much noise after, I think, 2 weeks about whether or not propositionally people should bet on this team to not make the playoffs. And sitting here at 1-3 with the bye coming up in week 7, bad time to be a Cincinnati Bengals fan. And for us, bad time to be a Cincinnati Bengals better in week 4.
And, they were 0-2 last year, got it back to 500 at 2-2. I think I was peaking back to last year, which I don't like doing. So our 2 losses, Saints -3 versus the Buccaneers, Bengals -2.5 at the Titans. That is in the Super Contest. 3 hits. And I have to say, all 3 of these were pulled from my 5 selections on Anik Squared. Jaguars -3 versus the Falcons. That was the London game. They won 23-7. A lot of plays left out on the field. They better not leave all those plays out there if they want to contend versus the Buffalo Bills in London this week. But like starting out Sunday morning with a win, I have to say, though, so square of me, right? I play the Falcons in a teaser as a hedge, hedging the contest, teased it up to 9, had no business doing that. Our second hit, Chargers -5.5 versus the Raiders. Brandon Staley did try to fuck around late and lose this one for us, as he likes to do. But the coach on the other side might be worse, Josh McDaniels. So he went with the rookie out of Purdue, Aiden O'Connell. Frankly, I like that if your other option is Brian Hoyer, but Aiden O'Connell didn't look ready. Khalil Mack, 6 sacks, looked like a man sacking a boy. But anyway, no Joey Bosa, even more impressive. The Chargers do cover that 5.5 versus the Raiders. And finally, last night, as we come to you Tuesday, Seattle Seahawks pick them at the Giants. We got it as a pick 'em. I think it closed as 2. This game could have gotten close at one point. The Giants were threatening. Daniel Jones throws a 97-yard pick 6. Geno Smith was pretty fired up last night. I like that. But for me, even, Seattle heading into a bye. I mean, what a spot to play them last night. So those were the 3 hits: Jaguars, Chargers, Seahawks, 3-2 overall, 9-11. Any thoughts on any of those 3 hits, John?
Gosh, what do you make, of the New York Giants right now? Certainly, yes, you're right. They had opportunities to flip that game a little bit, but my goodness, right? If you listened or watched Anik Squared last year, the Brian Dable love fest, the overachievement of that team, the ensuing offseason, the contract extension or new contract, I guess you could call it, for Daniel Jones, and caution, flammable. I mean, Saquon Barkley might be walking through that door this weekend, and that could provide some sort of respite as double-digit underdogs against the Miami Dolphins. But I feel like the Seattle ceiling in this top-heavy NFC is such that the bigger story coming out of that game is actually the Giants. I like Geno Smith. I actually didn't think that was a particularly dirty play that he called into question, which I guess is neither here nor there. I just think there's a 3-headed monster at the top of the NFC in San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Dallas. So I'm just not sure that Seattle's going to be able to get over the hump, even though I do like a lot of parts of that roster. And yeah, you can bang on me as you did all last week for fading coaches. But in terms of the Chargers and the Raiders and the Vikings, I like Minnesota +5 at home against Kansas City in week 5. This Taylor Swift variable is a very real thing. And, there's no way that I could go near Kevin O'Connell in the Minnesota Vikings, nor could I go near a Josh McDaniels-led Las Vegas Raiders outfit right now.
Yeah, I think it's a good point you bring up that the Giants really are the story. I know Seattle went in and beat Detroit this year, but I still don't think they're ready to quite handle Philly or San Francisco, certainly not in a postseason setting on the road. I certainly don't like their chances to win that game. But the Giants, looking up in their division, you could argue perhaps at a 3-headed monster. I like what the Commanders are doing, and Dallas and Philly. Man, it's going to be interesting. And that Dable-Jones dynamic on the sidelines is interesting every week.
Oh, that's fun, isn't it? I need some Washington Commanders merchandise. I should have it by episode 7 or 8 of this show, as long as DraftKings doesn't blow the whole goddamn thing up.
Speaking of merchandise, did you see that Joshua Dobbs, there was, I believe this was on the Red Zone channel, but he was not available for purchase. His jerseys were not available for purchase in the Arizona Cardinals gift shop. There's like almost like an iPad or something. You enter your order. You literally couldn't get the starting quarterback's jersey. So he put a video out there. Hey, I can't get my own jersey. They've since rectified that, but made me want to support him and buy his jersey. It's always nice to update the standings on Anik Squared on a week like this. But, I have to say, be careful what you wish for. This guy last week, all sorts of preparation, feeling really good about yourself and your preparation last week. I get to your house circumstantially 1:00 on Sunday, right? And this guy wants to know, what do we have in the contest? What are our contest plays, right? So I send him our contest plays. I start to talk to this guy about his picks on Anik Squared. Don't worry about that. Now I understand, right? I understand the super contest is where it's at. That's where we're playing for some money, but don't disregard. You do plenty of research, and then Jon Anik puts together, let's get right into it, a 1-4 last week. Lost 4 games, hit 1. So you go overall to 9-11, 2 games below 500. I'll go through them quickly. Packers +1.5 versus Lions. That was Thursday night. Colts -1 versus the Rams. Big comeback. Didn't work out for Eagles. -8 versus Commanders. They never had a chance there to cover that 8. Panthers +3.5 versus the Vikings. And your one hit, Cowboys -6.5 versus the Patriots, which looks good. Anything you want to get into about your 1-4 last week?
Well, I guess we could start with your celebratory tone. I wonder if our producer, Cody Merrow, is not laughing behind the proverbial glass as you sort of boast about my 1-4 week. And we'll get to your 4-1, and I'm very happy that you're seeing the board cleanly, right? But Packers, no chance, okay? Terrible bet. And we certainly were on a Lions money line wager come game time on Thursday, which I guess is neither here nor there. Colts had a chance. Eagles, I think, had an outside chance. Carolina Panthers certainly had a chance. And the Dallas Cowboys blew out the New England Patriots. So we're undeterred, if not undisputed, and we're ready to go into week 5. But as far as breaking down those particular bets, The Eagles, I think, is the one that is probably the most frustrating because laying big numbers in division, caution Flambeau, and I paid the price.
Well, we almost played the Lions in the contest on Thursday night, and that tells you all you need to know. I don't think you like the Packers come game time, and that's an inevitability of recording a show early on. We're typically coming at you Wednesday. Today, we're coming at you Tuesday. These lines move all day long when we're prepping these shows all day long. And we're going to talk about my picks. Yeah, the 4-1. I'm more interested when it's 1-4 to go at you than it is for me to talk about my 4-1. But I'm much more excited to talk to this man today, our guest. I was able to meet him for the first time in Boston a couple months back, played offensive line at Rhode Island. He's built an incredible career in local and national sports radio. He is the co-host of Gresh and WEEI weekdays from 10 to 2, 93.7 WEEI Boston. I've been listening to this guy my whole life. What a fucking honor, ladies and gentlemen. Andy Gresh.
You guys think way more of me than I think of myself, I have to say. And I almost feel like I'm like missing the boat. I need to like raise my microphone up a little bit. So I'm like you two guys. Listen, the pleasure is all mine. It's the voice of the goddamn UFC and the guy that he drags around with him all the time to all these events.
Well, speaking of the guy that I drag with me, and it's great to see my man Andy Gresh live and in color today. Beautiful home studio, or so it appears. You could voice anything out of that little box you're in right now.
Oh, dude, let me tell you, this is the back corner of our bedroom, and to my left is the wall over here. It's like one of those changing walls that I put some stuff on, because normally I'd be doing radio out of here, and my wife would be like, oh, my God. Really, the truth is, at 1 o'clock in the morning when I'd be on CBS Sports Radio, if I didn't have this wall, everybody'd be hearing her snoring as I'm taking calls from, Joe from Poughkeepsie on why I hate the Bills. So sorry about that.
Well, hey, if I turn my computer, you would see my master bedroom, and my bed is right there, but we do have a little nook here that we're trying to turn into a studio. But it's good to see you, and I guess nothing going on in your world. My brother was very upset that our young producer didn't know who Andy Gresh was until a few weeks ago, right? It's so funny. We put you on this pedestal, and rightfully so, but guys born in 1993 may not know the legend that is Andy Gresh.
Yeah, I don't know about the whole legend. What am I good at? Getting fired, telling people to piss off, various other things as well. But no, you guys are very kind. And it is apropos that I am on the week that Mac Jones completely soiled himself in Dallas, given that Jon Anik came on the air with two-time Super Bowl champion Christian Fourier and I, and he's not a Mac guy, and it's absolute perfect timing for Anik to just for John. Well, I forgot it's two Aniks. Two Aniks, no waiting. Just stick it to me a little bit for giving him the business on Mac Jones.
I tried to be respectful in tone and in nature. Obviously, you guys, Christian Fourier, Andy Gresh, were firmly on Mac Island, and maybe firmly is the wrong adverb, if I'm being honest.
It's a little heavy.
In the nature,
I was all the way on Mac Island.
Okay.
I admit it. I own it. And now comes the biggest week of his football life.
All right, so we want to be respectful of this quarter of an hour that we have with the great Andy Gresh, Sports Radio 850 WEEI in Boston, 93.7, I believe. What's the FM?
850,
93.7. There you go. No, he was on it. He's a pro, Jason. He's a pro. He knows how to plug.
I'd imagine you have ingested this Rex Ryan sound that is particularly critical in nature of Mac Jones's arm. So we're going to take 60 seconds, play this Rex Ryan sound from ESPN on Monday, and give you a chance to react to this particular criticism being levied at the QB1 of the NEP.
Are you referring to Pea Shooter Jones? I think you are. Because here's the thing. The guy doesn't have a whole lot of arm talent. I've said it from jump. Maybe the weakest arm for all starting quarterbacks in the league. Maybe that Ritter kid. I don't know. Mm-hmm. What's the truth? Give me a guy that has a worse arm than this cat. It doesn't happen. All right? He doesn't have the power to throw it outside the numbers or vertically, and that's it. Why do they throw all those screens? I love his completion percentage. Yeah, he's throwing screens and hitches and things like that. When he has to make plays, he can't make them. And that's a simple fact. I don't hate. I'm telling you, based on all the years, I've had to defend against everybody. I would love to defend against this guy. Are you kidding me? Like, this guy can't throw. And look, Bill, I will say this. He's their best option.
All right, Gresh, you heard it there from Rex Ryan. Your thoughts?
Okay, now it's really awesome because Rex Ryan will rear his ugly head whenever the Patriots are down, right? Last year, he really didn't have much to say about Mac Jones, but he sure as hell had a lot to say about Bill Belichick and the way he structured his coaching staff. And, Rex has a real identity problem, is really what it is, guys. It is, he thinks like Bill Belichick. But Bill Belichick is lauded as a genius because that guy, Rex Ryan, decided to go all in with Senior Butt Fumble for 2 years in a row to go to AFC Championship games and never got any of the love and the accolades. Here's where Rex Ryan was right. The arm talent thing, all that stuff is overrated. It's the making a play when it counts. And that's what Mac has to graduate to. There were chances to do it. It didn't happen. There are reasons it didn't happen. But the bottom line is he is a part of needing to fix that. So, John, I know you and I are on opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to Mac Jones. But I will say this. He put himself on the radar with his performance in Dallas, and now he's got to fight his way out of it. So we're going to find out if Mac Jones has got a real set of balls, let's say,
Right.
And can he power his way out of it? Because to me, it's not the physical. It's up here right now, and that's what Mac's got to get fixed.
There's no greater thing to have in life, no matter what you're doing, than confidence. And I certainly don't think he has confidence right now. Not so sure that he feels sort of the confidence behind him. And I think there are spots in his career where he has felt that confidence. I said to you and Christian Fourier when I was with you, when we got off air, that when the Patriots were 9-4 a couple of years ago, it just felt very fraudulent when they were the one seed. It just never really felt like anything. But I have to be honest, for me, with Mac Jones, I'm not invested in this team the way I wish I could be as a fan anymore, because I just see that the last thing you want to be in this team is right in the middle, mediocre. And I see the ceiling 10-7. So for me, I almost would love them to fall flat on their face. I don't think the schedule's hard enough. I see them go 5, 6, 7, whatever they do. But I don't see this guy as the future. As much as you are on Mac Island, do you see him today as the future, hoisting the next Lombardi in Foxborough?
Yeah, the whole hoisting the next Lombardi thing, I don't know if I'm willing to go there. Do I think he is the guy? I am a believer in the dude because I do think there are some things that are championship worthy about Mac Jones. But we all know this. It's got to start to show up on the field. And unfortunately, and Jason, I think you nailed it. Right now, there's a fine line between playing scared and playing careful, right? If you play careful, you're still taking chances, but you're being mindful with the ball. If you're being scared, you're not taking chances and you're not throwing the ball. And I do think with all of what went down last year when Matt Patricia, it was really beaten into Mac of don't you dare turn it over. And then there is but you better go score points. So then the guy plays outside of himself, throws an interception across the field, and oh my God, everybody is ultimately losing their minds as they should because he's pressing. He's going to be confident that he himself is good enough, meaning even if the play blows up, don't throw it in the middle of coverage, for God's sakes. Tuck it and eat the sack because it's the smart play. And I worry about Max starting to press a little bit and trying to make things happen that just aren't there. That's how you get into turnovers, and that's how your ass ends up on the bench. He's got to start producing better. It's plain and simple.
Sports radio legend Andy Gresh with us here on Anik Squared. Twice now I've used that word legend. New England sports radio legend, to be sure.
Dude, it freaks me out, I have to say. Like, it completely freaks me out.
So I was at ESPN Radio headquarters, Bristol, Connecticut, doing updates as Gresh was hosting national talk radio game night, and that's when we first met, but I had admired him from afar. We're probably the same age, but I was listening to you for years and aspiring to your level, and so to talk to you in this context is very cool. I want to ask you about your job relative to the NFL season, especially in a market like Boston. I'd imagine, like everything in my life is better and more rosy when the NFL is in season. To what extent is your job as a former football player especially more fun during these 18, 20, 22 weeks?
Well, as you guys know, it is the thing that even Taylor Swift fans are now paying attention to, right? Like, it's not, that yucky football. Oh my God. It's like, oh, Taylor's there, so it must be awesome. And people are kind of getting sucked in a little bit. So it's the high tide, I think, for all of us, whether it is talking gambling like you two guys do on this podcast and do such a great job of it, or it's just I got a game on Thursday, I got a college game on Friday, I got a full slate on Saturday, I got games on Sunday, I got a pro game on Monday. Like, it's just there for us it's our crack. It really is. It's like going to the buffet and just filling yourself full of food and the greatness with football. So no, it's a high tide. And, you guys can appreciate this because, Sean, your schedule's pretty aggressive. And I know, Jason, you're all over the place with him. But, for me, it's like 5 days a week on the radio. You do some Friday TV. Then it's a college game on Saturday. Then it's pregame on Sunday, TV that night. Everybody loves to just consume the football content. And for as much as I love the Celtics and I love the Drew Holiday trade, and I think they're going to be really good, there isn't that sort of 12-month-a-year yearning for basketball or other sports the way that there is the NFL. And even college football, you can get it about 6 or 8 months out of the year, depending on where you live. But the NFL is the rare 12-month-a-year kind of sport. Even when they're not playing, people are still paying attention.
So I know you originally from Pennsylvania, but then went to college in Rhode Island, been in the New England area. My dad grew up in Long Island, but went to Northeastern in Boston. So he really became a Boston sports fan in his sort of late teen years. And when Jon started to cover sports, he became less of a Boston sports fan. It used to really piss me off because I used to want to sort of rap with him about Boston sports. And he was just sort of a little bit removed in the way of a fan. I remember when he used to host a show with Ryan Russillo, I used to try and get Russillo to be a fan with me too. And I couldn't get them to do that. So I guess I want to know about you. Are you a fan at your core of any of these teams? And has that dissipated over the years covering it and it being your occupation?
That's an awesome question because for me, the time I spent on the Patriots radio network, it's now kind of desensitized me a little bit in terms of getting emotionally really wrapped up into that. I think with football, for me, it's more now I just want to be right. I want to be right. But with the Celtics, when they got Drew Holiday, I'm in the middle of doing a morning football show on WEEI, and it was, oh my God, we need to stop down to talk about this for 10 minutes. So I think for me with the Celtics, because I wasn't in the belly of the beast the way I was for the Patriots, I definitely react differently. The Bruins will always get me, always. I'll be cussing at the TV or screaming at Marchand or something like that. And then with the Red Sox, it's tough because they're so up and down, and you can't get behind the organization because I don't really know what they stand for as a group, as an organization. What's the philosophy going to be? So I'll admit, Jason, I'm kind of scattershot, but it hasn't sucked the life out of me yet. There are a lot of people who, when they get to 30 years of doing talk radio, the only way they can do it is look at it through the lens of being a talk radio host. And I'm halfway there. I'm not completely there yet. And I will say, and this is not sucking up, and you guys know this, UFC is one of my big sports. I love it. I got to talk it with you guys. My kids are into it. We've gone to Vegas. I would say we've probably gone to Vegas 5 or 6 times to go to pay-per-views because we just love to go out there. We love the feel. We love the vibe. I've said to you guys, as soon as I hear that pre-pay-per-view video start playing and everybody's like, oh, you hear Teenage Wasteland. Fine, call it what it is. I don't care.
Right.
Yo, that video is dope and it gets me hyped. And that's where I feel like a fan is when I'm at UFC.
I love hearing that. And it was great to be able to meet your family, of course, before our pay-per-view in Boston.
Oh my God. Can I stop you down for 1 second to completely with a potentially embarrassing story? Okay. And you got to be real and honest with me because we have had family conflict over something that happened with you, Jon Anik. I don't know if you know this or not. It's not bad. It's completely our fault. So Jon is waiting outside the hotel before the Boston pay-per-view. He's in a car. He's sitting there waiting. And the goddamn voice of UFC jumps out of the car to come hug me and say, I'd only do it for you. My kids shit their pants. They're going nuts, right? My wife is holding a drink. And it's a giant thing of white wine. Okay? Jon comes in hot for the hug. My wife comes in hot, and she got stuff on his suit. I am not kidding you, Jason.
No way. I didn't know this.
I was ready to cry. because Jon goes, yo, I got this suit for Boston. Look at this thing. It's dope.
Brand new.
And it's just, hugging it up and bingo bango, and it's splashed on his suit. This is no word of a lie, Jon. All I'm thinking of is, oh my God, I have to see if this guy's doing a stand-up. If they have him sitting down, we completely effed his suit up. Now, it was white wine, it wasn't red, so that helped. However, Jon, honest to God, I am not kidding you. I didn't talk to anybody for like 5 minutes. I thought I ruined the day. I thought I ruined the pay-per-view. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to hate me forever. This is unbelievable. We took a long walk around the block, and my kids, 21 and 19, they're not kids.
Right.
They're like, are you okay? And I go, I don't know. So fast forward, 6:30, stuff's about to start. I get out of my seat and run to the concourse because they have the broadcast on. And everyone's like, where are you going? And I said, I need to go see if Jon is standing up. You were, and I was able to go into the bathroom and wipe my hind end of all the duty that was all over myself because I thought I ruined the day. Oh my God, I feel so terrible. And we said if that suit was ruined, my wife goes, if that thing is ruined, you need to buy it from him. You need to keep it for posterity. You could sell it down the road when he's super famous, whatever. Honest to God, Jon, I legitimately almost had to run back upstairs and change my drawers because I was so worried that we screwed the day.
You did not. It's amazing to hear you recount that story. You did not ruin the day, nor the pay-per-view, nor the suit. Although, if I'm being completely truthful, when I got back in the motor vehicle, I was like, man, I got a decent amount of white wine on me right now. But
you did.
That is a beautiful, brand new Mark Russell Green suit that can absolutely take a beating. So we were able to get through it. But I thought you were going to ask me if I was telling the truth when I said that there were really very few people that I would have exited the vehicle to greet with a bunch of UFC fans on the curb. With respect, I was about to go to the arena, and I've heard you talk about your boys as UFC fans, and when I saw you walking out with those boys, I mean, I couldn't have gotten out of the car fast enough. So you can tell your boys there's probably, less than 5 people for sure that would have had me exiting the motor vehicle in my hometown, no less. So.
Oh my God, that is fantastic. I'm glad it didn't ruin the suit. And now when I'm done with this, I'll be able to go downstairs and tell everybody, oh my God, we didn't screw it up.
Let them know. All right, before we let you go, right now, and a lot of people like the scheduling spot for New England this weekend, the Patriots -1.5, home to the New Orleans Saints. They're getting 62% of the handle right now, 55% of the overall action on DraftKings Sportsbook. You're locked in. You're dialed in. Not necessarily asking for a prediction here on a Tuesday. We haven't even seen the injury report. It's not going to look good on the New England side. What are your thoughts on them against the Saints as they try to get their second win of the year?
Honest to God, Jon, this is a tough one to handicap because I can't really tell who the Saints are. And, what their special teams coach, Darren Rizzi, was a teammate of mine at URI. Rizzi was an All-American. He got like the head coaching job at New Haven and at URI, went down there. He coaches special teams. And I've been back and forth with him a little bit. And I get the sense that defensively, they know they're really good. On special teams, they're scoring points. And they just don't, it hasn't come together for them offensively, kind of like New England. Carr played last week, even though he was compromised. So I don't know what level of play you're kind of getting out of him. So this thing is going to be bowling shoe ugly. It's going to be low scoring. And I'm sort of torn right now. I'd lean New England only from this standpoint, is that if there's ever a time this team is going to rise up, this is the time. This is the week. Your back's against the wall. You played like just rubbish, garbage down in Dallas. You got to find a way to fight back. And you guys will remember this. That 2009 documentary with Belichick, that was like the Do Your Job or whatever it was, right? He's standing on the sidelines in New Orleans with Tom Brady beside him in 2009. And Brady's like, if we do this, we do that. And Belichick says, nah, I can't get this team to do what I need them to do, and was just standing there shaking his head. Yep. I feel like we're almost at that moment with Bill Belichick and this team. Either they show you there's some lead in the pencil and they really want to go out and fight, or they're going to go out and lose an ugly game and play like crap, and then all the questions are really going to begin regardless of what happens against the Raiders. So I'm really torn. I think it's going to be ugly. I say New England ekes it out just on the law of averages. Look at what happened with Dallas. They got beat heavy in Arizona. They came back, played well against New England. I'm still banking on that there's a heartbeat with this team. But if they turn around and get beat 20-0, they just might be the cowardly Lions, the whole group of them.
Man.
It's devastating to say, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I just have to ask you, one of the things I've always admired about you and a lot of these guys that are able to host solo radio shows, right? And you've done a lot in your career, a lot of it, caller driven. Well, not necessarily all of it caller driven. And that always amazes me. And there's a guy who works for the UFC. His name is Dean Thomas. He works with John Broadcaster. And Dean, and yeah, you're a UFC fan. You know who Dean is. And Dean talks to me about certain spots doing radio on his own and how challenging that can be. But guys like you that clearly anyone who's watched this 10, 15 minutes can tell it's like taking candy from a baby. But do you enjoy more having Fourier to your left, even though you hit that out of the park when you're doing it on your own?
Yeah, it's always cool to work with someone. And I love the way UFC weaves in guys like Dean Thomas or others. I'm a big fan of Laura Sanko. I think she does a great job. And to have a woman that can grab somebody by the goozle pipe is kind of interesting. You know what I mean? But it's fun to do solo radio because that's when the true art form comes into play. I think, one of the things that I really like about Jon during UFC broadcasts is the use of voice. They tell you drive in third gear. You can go up to fifth and you can go down to first, depending on the situation, right? And I think it's kind of the same thing when you're doing solo talk radio. I can bring you up, or if I bring you down and talk to you slowly, you pay attention that much more. And that's what I love about doing the solo radio. I do think the ways of the phone calls, they're kind of going to the wayside a little bit because you can't use your phone in the car anymore. People don't want to wait on hold. We're an impatient society anyway. So on national radio where it's just me, I'll talk to, Joe from Timbuktu or whatever. But I think for the Boston sports fan, it's much more of how much content can we give them in 4 hours that they're really going to be interested in and keep it moving. That's kind of the way of the youngs. And for me, I will cite within our building all the time the way UFC does something. When you guys start your prelims or whatever, you know that there's going to be a pace to it that is going to keep you interested and not make me want to go out onto the deck and hang out for 20 minutes because I'm waiting for something to happen. And I think it's that way in radio. I almost like hey, let's pick up the pace and give people stuff to listen to and not worry about whether some guy wants to call to talk about, how hairy Mac Jones's knuckles are.
Yeah, and I just remember being young and listening, and you're a similar age as us, but that was what it was, is listening to your energy. And I find a lot of these programs out there, whether it's podcasts or otherwise, they just lack energy. Now, I even learned from you as you slowed it down in the microphone. Jon and I tend to be fast. They say everyone from Boston talks fast, but slowing down, I think, is an important skill too. But man, it's like seeing you break it down slow like that. That'll help me moving forward. You can be sure.
Well, and it's the whole, it's funny because there are so many people who can elevate their voice, but people don't kind of lower it down. Like there have been fights that I know Jon has called where somebody has really been compromised in the ring and you can hear the hush of the crowd and Jon's voice will naturally come down. And it is this is a serious situation or whatever, you throw it to break or something like that. And I do think on radio, it plays even better because people can't see you when you're doing it. But to me, that's what I recognize first. To me, you can tell the real pros when they know how to kind of drive the car with their voice a little bit. I think it's vitally important. And really for somebody who does play-by-play, it's important as well because, you guys are from Boston, right? You could turn on a Red Sox game. And if you hear Joe Castiglione doing we're back in the eighth and it's 7-1 and give me the strychnine and the serpents. Oh, it's over. You can tell sometimes by the play-by-play guy, just kind of the vibe of the room. And it's awesome. It's a unique power to be able to have.
No, I think that's really well put. And I certainly sat across from you through the glass as you were hosting those solo shows and I was doing the updates. And it's not that I was stoned, but I was sitting in there thinking, man, I'm glad I'm not doing this solo show tonight. I like having a co-host. But all right, if you want to find this man on Instagram, it is at The Real Gresh. And it's really fun to pick your brain and talk a little bit about broadcasting and the New England Patriots. And I do think that maybe the jury is still out on Mac Jones. So this was maybe intentional in some part to book you today, but hopefully we can connect later in the season. Get a litmus test at that point in time, and we'll see the extent to which you reside on Mac Island at that point in time.
You guys know I love both of you. I respect the hell out of you guys. I love it that you're doing your own thing. It's so awesome to listen to what sounds like the same person talking to themselves. It freaks everybody out. That's why you got to watch the video. I absolutely love it. Seriously, thank you for having me. It's as much a blast for me and an honor for me as it is for you guys. And whenever you need me, you know I'm around to spew some bullshit.
You're the best. Ladies and gentlemen, the inimitable Andy Gresh. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you. How about that guy, man? How about that guy? I learned a lot. You know, I've been hosting an MMA podcast with Bilal Muhammad, 115 episodes or whatever. Andy Gresh just gave me some nice feedback. That'll help me slow myself down a little bit.
Well, and there are a lot of things that I'm still working on and trying to master 25 years in. Gresh has been doing sports talk radio for 30 years, I believe he said, which really dates him. I don't think he's that old, maybe 25 years for Gresh. But either way, there was a time for both of us when we were filling out our resumes and wondering how are we going to get 3 to 5 years of broadcast experience to get any of these jobs. And then you fast forward and you have that experience. Andy Gresh, 48 years old, by the way. So maybe an extra 5 years on me. But, well, no, not anymore. 3 years on me, but 5 years in the business. But now you get to a point where you have the experience and you're able to use it to your advantage, right? Like certainly I would cringe if I listened to some of the Bellator MMA footage back in 2009, and there's still UFC footage in 2023 that I'm probably not super proud of, but it's an evolution, and your evolution continues as the host of the show. So where the fuck are we going from here?
Yeah, well, we'll get on to our picks because we like moving forward, but we will quickly touch on last week. So you were 1-4, which moved you to 9-11. We went over that. I, on the other hand, was 4-1, taking me overall to 12-8. So a 3-game lead over you. My only loss was the Dolphins +3. This was almost a little happiness hedge for me trying to take down the Dolphins. Probably could have been left out of my 5. The 4 hits, Lions -1.5 at the Packers Thursday night. I love that. I do want to say Aiden Hutchinson, man, the second overall pick 2022. Not a lot of chatter about this guy, but dude, he is a problem. He reminds me of the Bosa brothers. Every play, this guy makes an impact. Jaguars -3 in London. I love that. That came through. Chargers, we talked about earlier, -5. But I have to shout out your boy, Max Crosby. Richard Sherman said something about him on his podcast. I don't know if you saw, but Max Crosby, huge UFC fan. John knows him pretty good. Dude, this guy makes an enormous impact on the football field, like every snap. And he's so humble, and he's playing for this organization. And Richard Sherman was just voicing aloud that he hoped that he would have an opportunity, whether it's with the 49ers, as Sherman was saying, but to play somewhere, because Crosby is special.
He'll get his opportunity. Special human being as well. He will get his opportunity to play in big games. And every time somebody goes to criticize the Raiders defense, they feel like they have to add a caveat. And that is number 98 in your program, number 1 in your fucking heart, Max Crosby.
Double X. And the final hit, Seahawks +1 at the Giants. I got this +1 early. It went up to +2. But yeah, we talked about the Giants, Seattle. So anyway, 4-1. Let's move it forward. So as we say every week on this show, there's nothing like the National Football League, and Sundays are again my favorite day of the week. I'm watching multiple screens, locked into all things pro football action all over the board. We at Anik Squared are happy to announce that we have partnered with our title sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the National Football League, to bring all new customers an exciting way to join in on the action right now. New customers download the DraftKings app, use our promo code SQUARED, that's SQUARED, bet just $5 and boom, $200 in bonus bets hit your account instantly. So don't wait any longer. Get some skin in the game and download the DraftKings app now. Stay in on the action. Use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets together from the same game for a shot at an even bigger payout. If sports betting happens to not be available yet in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up using promo code SQUARED. Again, just bet $5 on any wager, get $200 in bonus bets instantly, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. I like that new tagline, the crown is yours. You like that, Johnny?
Outstanding. I've had to utter it a lot of times, plenty more where that came from. All right, let's get to week 5.
Head-to-head picks, 3-game lead. All right. So I guess you said I'm going to lead since I beat
You have
beat
the
you last week.
option to lead. I don't care what you do. But yes, if you win the previous week, you get to lead off and make your first selection because obviously if you make a pick that is one of mine, I got to come up with another game.
Exactly. So you just indicated the only rule is if I'm on a game, Jon can't be on that same game. I'm going to start it out. And I will say I'm on chalky again, man. I like favorites. My first selection is the Sunday night game, the 49ers minus 3.5 versus the Cowboys. 49ers are the best thing going in football. I'll lay the small number against Dallas Sunday night. I think the number's bigger if they don't maul, if the Cowboys don't maul New England. I think San Francisco's a bigger favorite here. You know, Brock Purdy is my favorite quarterback to watch in the NFL. It's not Josh Allen, it's not Patrick Mahomes. That's saying a lot. You've been talking about him as MVP for 3-4 weeks at this point. I think Christian McCaffrey might be one of the best players in the history of the NFL. Just the impact he makes on offense. And those weapons, it's Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. I think I need to get an Ayuk jersey. Brandon Ayuk, just all over the place. Their defense still elite, ranked 5th overall. As good as Dallas is on defense, I just don't think they have enough to stop San Francisco. Shanahan calling plays. I think they keep it rolling. Get this one at home. I hope they win by 4 more. First selection for me, 49ers minus 3.5.
I probably would be on Dallas plus 3.5. Huge game for them, just given the way that series has gone, especially in postseasons past. We'll see how it goes. Huge game. Definitely the game of the week, the 49ers and the Cowboys. All right, first play for me. And by the way, I will just say, week 3, I love the board. Destroyed my local bookie. Week 4, loathed the board. And he got me pretty good. I gave a good chunk of it back. Week 5 is probably closer to week 4 than week 3. So I'm not in love with the board here on a Tuesday. A lot of information still to come over the course of the week. I would encourage everybody to check out the injury reports because it does factor prominently into this equation, especially when it comes to some of these offensive and defensive lines. All right, first pick for me, Buffalo Bills minus 5.5 against the Jacksonville Jaguars at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, England. So the Bills have now won and covered in 3 straight, and I just don't think Jacksonville can keep up with nor shut down the Bills' offense. Jags have been in England since, of course, their win over Atlanta last Sunday in London. And I do think that is some sort of advantage already being there, although despite the fact that they're already in the time zone, I think part of this week is going to be recreational in nature for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And even if they're all locked in, they haven't necessarily wowed me on either side of the ball. Perhaps they're due to put a game together. On the Buffalo Bills side, many of you know Tre'Davious White out for the season, torn Achilles. Definitely hurts the Buffalo defense a lot. But this is a complete team, an outstanding layered offense. I like the Bills to get to 30 points again. And I hope that'll be enough for the cover. Bills minus 5.5 against the Jaguars to lead off my card for week 5.
It's interesting you bring up the board because I mentioned last week how much I loved the board, and it was maybe difficult for me to nail down 5 picks, but I liked 8 or 9 games. So I think we need to pay attention to that because I don't like the board this week at all. My second selection, fins up again. My only loss last week in the Dolphins, but I'm laying the 10.5. I think it's 11 now. These lines move all over the place. I punched it this morning at 10.5. Dolphins have scored 150 points this year. The Giants have scored 46. Excuse me if I didn't say Dolphins minus 10.5 hosting the New York Football Giants. Short week for the Giants. So Dolphins scored 150. Giants have scored 46. So they're outscoring them by 26 points per game. I certainly think the Dolphins win by 2 or more touchdowns here. Still a lot of heat and humidity down here in Florida. Dolphins averaging 8 yards a play. Giants averaging 4 yards a play. I think they're twice as good. I think they'll double their fucking score, whatever it is. I have to go with the Dolphins here. You know, you and I pretty high on Daniel Jones and Dable going into the season. I hate that, Daniel Jones got a little Mac Jones in him, a little panic, certainly a lack of awareness. I'm afraid Saquon Barkley might play. They're tight-lipped. I don't really know where he's at, but if he plays, this may move me off this game come the weekend. But for now, fins up. Shout out Joe Osborne. Dolphins minus 10.5.
Yeah, if Saquon Barkley doesn't play, be like minus 14. Gosh, I mean, I never like laying big, thick numbers like that. But yes, I mean, I think you're wise to point out that playing in South Florida the first 6-7 weeks of the season, nothing ideal about it. I do like Miami laying a big number this weekend against the New York Giants. All right, next pick for me, Houston Texans plus 2.5 points at the Atlanta Falcons. Sucker bet. We'll find out next week on Anik Squared. So this line was won earlier on Tuesday, so I'm going against the betting public, or so it would appear, the action at the very least. Pretty robust injury report on the offensive line for the Texans. Perhaps that has something to do with the movement. But you're not scaring me off of C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans and the Houston Football Texans. So Atlanta traveling back from London, get back to their families, right? Another offensive stinker for Arthur Smith and co. in Europe. Like, what are we doing here? I'm not going to sit here and suggest that they are throwing games, but I do think that as we sit here, October 3rd, 2023, and I hope if you hear nothing on this episode, you hear this line. The Atlanta Falcons are more aware than the New England Patriots are that they do not have a quarterback. I'm not going to overthink it here. The Texans win 3 straight games, and you're getting points here. Texans plus 2.5 makes my card for week 5.
I love it. So that was one of my alternate selections, Texans plus 2. And so I have to say, I love the broadcast crew, Chris Fowler, Dan Orlovsky, and Louis Riddick. Your guy, Louis Riddick in London, right? So Sunday morning, we're obviously the only game in 10 is Falcons Jaguars, right? So the Falcons, Dan Orlovsky's talking about the Falcons have some winnable games coming up, right? And one of them talking about the Texans. Now, this is obviously prior to their 30-6 shellacking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but Louis Riddick sort of checked Dan Orlovsky in that moment, saying, I don't know how winnable this Texans team is. I like D'Amico Ryans. I'll tell you right now, like, I've seen some sharp guys out on the Falcons, but Louis Riddick, pretty sharp too. I'm not necessarily saying he's picking the Texans, but I had to get that in there. Love that game. My third selection. I don't have much to even say about this one. The Rams plus 4.5 hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. This I see at 4 now. I saw it at 4.5. I punched it. I think Philly might suffer their first loss of the season here. They're not necessarily world beaters. Cooper Kupp isn't back this week. Soonest he could be back is next week. But like, does it matter? All these weapons? It's like Puka Nacua. He'd certainly fit in the bill. The Rams have been run on, but, Philly, the Commanders gave them all they could handle last week. I just really don't I see this being a great game. I don't see Philly running away with it. I think the Rams have a great chance to win, so I'll gobble up those 4.5 points at home. My third selection, Rams plus 4.5 hosting Philadelphia.
I really like the Rams as well. I know some of the sharps that I have let in this week early on are on the Philadelphia side. I think some of that has to do with Matthew Stafford's health or lack thereof. And I think some of it is just going to have to do with how good was his offseason to be able to deal with the physical week in, week out nature of the NFL at this stage of his career. But I am definitely on the Rams side with an asterisk being their health. Cooper Kupp practicing this week. So we'll see. He should be back. If not this week, I got to think next. All right. Third selection for me. And I will have the Commanders t-shirt next week, hopefully, to celebrate. Washington Commanders minus 6.5 against the Chicago Bears. So my risk tolerance is high here, as this is a Thursday night game. So you got to be careful. It's hard laying a big number on a Thursday night. Risk tolerance high. But if the Bears defense is as historically bad as we are led to believe, I got to think Sam Howell, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, this offense gets going. Eric Bieniemy calling the plays. Chicago's offense did show a little bit of life, actually a lot of life, I think, against the Denver Broncos. Very efficient performance from Justin Fields. But I like the Commanders. I like the Commies in primetime. Commanders minus 6.5, home to the Chicago Bears. And hopefully that gets us off to a good start on Thursday night.
So I'm going to have to move off of that. That was my next selection as well, the Commanders minus 6.5. And as you know, one of my alternate selections I just revealed was the Texans. So I'm scrambling here, but I have to say, right? So, I said, the Commanders, they almost beat the defending champs in their own building last week. And now they get the wet sandcastle Chicago Bears, right? Don't the Bears feel like a fucking wet sandcastle? Like it's all just fucking, like everything's just crumbling with the Chicago Bears.
The Eagles, the defending NFC champs. They didn't.
Yeah, what did I say? Super Bowl?
You said defending champs.
Defending NFC champs, excuse me. But I just feel like this Bears team is like a wet sandcastle. I just think they're melting. And it's Thursday night. Two teams going in totally different directions. I had to get it in. Yeah, Cody, our producer, just put in the chat, Fields over Mac Jones, 100%. I would do the trade today. I had that in my notes for later.
The question is Desmond Ridder versus Mac Jones, not Justin Fields at this point in time. But as you were.
But you got to fade the Bears. And to me, with the Commanders, right? With a loss here, you're not relevant in this division. With Philadelphia and Dallas, like you absolutely got to handle your business. I think there's still some momentum. I'm sure they got on that plane a little disappointed not winning the game, but with a little bit of juice, new ownership, and thank God in DC. Anyway, I had to get in on that game. All right, so now my fourth selection, moving. I'm going to go with the Ravens minus 4 at the Steelers. Again, this line's moving a little bit. I saw 4.5 a little bit. I'm reluctant to lay these 4 points in the division, but whether it's a banged up Kenny Pickett or Mitchell Trubisky, I don't really care. I like my purple quarterback, Lamar Jackson. His receivers may be banged up, but Mark Andrews is his best weapon. I mean, it's unbelievable the connection those two guys have. I love watching them play. But Pittsburgh just banged up. No Cam Hayward. Deontay Johnson still on IR. Pat Freiermuth is doubtful. But John Harbaugh, the Ravens, they lost that game at home against the Colts. You can't give another one back here. They go to London next week to face Tennessee. The last 5 years, the Ravens have covered 66.7% of their games on the road. How about that?
Yeah.
That's a significant statistic. Give me Baltimore -4 against the Steelers, my fourth pick.
I kind of lean that way as well. However square aside it may be, Mike Tomlin is going to be in Canton because he has won games like this historically and had his team ready to compete. I think for Steelers bettors, you kind of hope it's Mitchell Trubisky. I think at least a week reset, and I do believe the Steelers have an early season bye. I think a reset would do Kenny Pickett some wonders actually right now. I think the MRI was negative. He is going to practice, but if I'm a Steelers bettor, or if I was even going to entertain that side, I would rather see Trubisky under center. All right, fourth play for me. The Arizona Cardinals +3, home to the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati's going to have to prove it to me. As we mentioned off the top of the show, we don't know Joe Burrow's status here on a Tuesday. Presumably he will play, but what does your eye test tell you about the level that Joe Burrow is at right now? His mobility, to what extent does it affect his ability to make every single throw on the field? T. Higgins probably is going to play because he's just an absolute savage as well, but to what extent? I don't think there's a huge drop-off there for Tyler Boyd, just acknowledging the injuries off the top. These Bengals just feel desperate to me at 1-3. They felt super desperate 0-2 and were able to get that win to sort of save their season. But, you can go 0-3 to 1-3 pretty easily. Their bye is coming in week 7. They have Arizona this week, Seattle at home in week 6. So if they could get one or both of those, and I'm speaking of this Cincinnati Bengals team that won an AFC not all that long ago, I think they could salvage their season, but I don't think they're going to get either one of these games. I'm not sure, right? Lowest points scored through 4 weeks in the NFL. Giants 46, Bengals 49, New England Patriots 55. Joshua Dobbs on the other side completing 70% of his passes, not throwing interceptions. Matt Prater banging 62-yarders. You tuned me into this head coach last week. His name's Jonathan Gannon. I guess he's actually like an acquired taste. Some people don't like him at all, but I'm all in. Cardinals will beat the Bengals outright, and I will take the 3 points with Arizona at home in Glendale.
I like it. Definitely I'm on that side as well. So my 7th selection, really my 5th selection, but my 7th selection, and I almost flipped a coin here because, as you know, we love us some Mike Vrabel. I don't like betting against Mike Vrabel, but this is kind of just a very simple play. I'm going to go with the Colts at home, -1 versus the Titans. I believe Jonathan Taylor will be playing, and I believe that'll be enough juice with Anthony Richardson to sort of get a dub there. So I'm going with the Colts. I never like rooting against the Texans. I feel like when I play the Texans, whether I'm on them or against them, I'm just off. But my 5th selection, Colts -1 versus Texans.
All right, final play for me. My T-shirt suggestively says, where there's a Bill, there's a way, right? And that is in reference to Bill Belichick. And for years, certainly Tom Brady had a lot to do with it, but for years, defensively, special teams, getting 45 guys to fall in line on game day, unifier of men. For years, you always could count on Belichick. And I'm not going to sit here and suggest that the game has passed him by. Certainly offensively, I wish he was a little bit more innovative in thought in terms of getting a quarterback that could actually move instead of just being stuck in the mud with the pocket passer, right? But I think we have gotten to a point where this T-shirt no longer applies. And for the sake of the women out there, I'm going to keep my shirt on. New Orleans Saints +1.5 at New England.
Attaboy.
History suggests this is a pretty good spot, as I mentioned with Gresh for Belichick and the Patriots. I'm not buying it at fucking all. Saints +1.5, regardless of who plays quarterback for New Orleans, regardless of who plays fucking quarterback for New England. The Saints have playmakers, many of whom are bottled up right now. I think some of them could get going. The Patriots are dinged up. No Judon, no Gonzalez. Torn labrum, by the way, for Christian Gonzalez, potentially not ideal. I see a little fire on special teams with New England, but the offense is just stuck, man. Ramondre Stevenson needs to get nasty. Juju Smith-Schuster, no urgency. No one's talking me off the Saints in week 5. New Orleans +1.5 to win outright at New England.
We got to talk about you see Mike McDaniel walking up the Dolphins sideline with the fucking gold glasses, just pimp hand so strong. And then you got Bill Belichick. To me, it's like, he's got Mac Jones out there. It's the guy he picked. that's a conflict of interest to me. He's got to stop picking the groceries. I don't mind if he still wants to be the head coach of the football team, but he can't be selecting the players anymore. He had a good draft last year. I understand he's drafting defensive players, but when's the last time they drafted an athlete, a guy, just a guy that, I just drive me nuts. I resist talking about this every fucking week.
Mike McDaniel got to get his troops back going. We'll see what happens to your boy Mike McDaniel this weekend, but all right, we'll see how it plays out.
We will. I just need somebody younger other than Bill O'Brien. I need someone innovative, young, inventive. Anyway, that's episode 5, week 5, Anik Squared. Keep an eye on those lines. You can be sure they'll change as the week continues for Toyo Tires and DraftKings and our outstanding producer, Cody Merrow, and the UFC play-by-play voice, Jon Anik. My name is Jason Anik. We will see you next week for Anik Squared. Appreciate you being with us. Enjoy the game.